The only reason my garden survived the onslaught of heat from July was because of my watering systems. And every time we do a garden tour, we talk about the plants. We don't really talk about the systems that made it possible for those plants to thrive. Given the fact that I do low maintenance gardening and I try to avoid having to do a lot of the same tasks every day, especially watering. I know a lot of people love watering and that's fine, but for me, even though I enjoy it, it's really draining and there's other things I enjoy more. We're going to go through the watering systems that I use in the garden today. I thought that would be a good thing that we could cover. We also just have some chores to take care of. It's the beginning of August. We need to kind of fill in some garden gaps. So I'm going to start off with planting some seeds. And I'm wearing my Throw Seeds Not Hands shirt because I just felt like that was the most appropriate outfit given the jobs we have to do today. So we're going to pick out some seeds for fall as well and kind of do a shopping list. But first I have some gaps I need to fill in here that either things were planted for spring and then I never actually replaced them, or I thought I planted something there and nothing came up, or I just never actually planted it. We're only gonna do a couple of things today though. So the first thing we're gonna do is a second round of beans. My Provider and Gold Rush green beans are still going strong. I did 9 to a square foot block, and this is 2 blocks right next to each other, but they do tend to slow down after like a couple rounds of picking them. I have another batch over here. This is the Gold Rush. So you can see they're starting to show some signs of damage here. They're just stressed. So I'm gonna replace them. I actually think I'm out of Provider green beans, so we're just gonna do another round of Gold Rush. Not in the same spot, because I wanna leave these and let them go as long as I possibly can. But I do have a spot over here that I thought I had planted something in, and I guess I never did. So it's in between some of my tomatoes, opposite to where the other Provider green beans are right here. It's basically a full 2 square feet that I can work in, except I've got this basil. So we'll just kind of work in this 1.5 feet here and do some more of the Gold Rush beans. I feel like it's pretty common at this point in the season that we all have some gaps in our garden for various reasons if things didn't make it. Especially if you're in a shorter growing season, it can be kind of hard to know if there's still time to do anything else. And I always recommend green beans for this scenario. We've got about 85 days left until our first frost. So really it's a good amount of time. A lot of things will still mature in that time. And we can start to think about planting the cold season stuff that we want to continue on even past those dates. But green beans are definitely the first thing I recommend if you're kind of thinking like, what can I put in now that will mature really fast? They usually mature in 50 to 60 days. The Gold Rush is about 55 days, I think. And they're just such a foolproof crop to grow. Like I don't even ever add multiple seeds to one spot because they tend to germinate really, really well. They're a bigger seed, so we can plant them about 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep. And they're super productive. Plus they're going to improve the quality of your soil. If you kind of cut them back instead of pulling out the roots, they'll introduce more nitrogen to the soil because they're nitrogen fixers. And I already have mulch in this bed, so I'm just kind of working around the mulch here, which is easier with a bigger seed like a green bean as well. So I'll do a few sections of the green beans out here. And then it's also a really good time if you have anything that you planted that didn't do so well, or maybe like in my case, the deer got to it. That was a really good time to see if you still have a chance to plant more of them. So these front beds in particular, I feel like are looking pretty bare, and this one's gonna look even more bare once I pull those radish seed pods out, especially toward the front. And the deer ate all of my sunflowers as soon as they started to mature. So I barely have enough time to do these, but yeah, I'm gonna try another round of dwarf teddy bear sunflowers as well as Desire Red hybrid sunflowers. I have some marigolds to deadhead in here too. These marigolds up front have not been doing as well. I'm not sure if, I can't remember if these were like clearance ones that I had grabbed. They're just not happy. I really wanted to do the teddy bear dwarfs. They did really well last year. It's a branching sunflower, so you get a lot of smaller blooms. And I wanted to do like an edible sunflower video for you guys. These are gonna take pretty much 60 to 70 days, I think, to mature. So I'm cutting it pretty close to try to get a round of these in. But they only get about 2 feet tall, which I really like. Mammoth sunflower can be so fun, but they also are pretty limiting in like where you can put them and kind of intimidating. So I'd rather just stick with what I know I really love at this point in the season, where I have limited spots to put things in a limited amount of time for those things to grow successfully. I want to just kind of focus in on the stuff that I'm really excited about, that I know will work really well. The mammoth ones are great if you're going to grill them whole, but I really want to try steaming these kind of like artichoke hearts. So I'm just doing like 3 different sections of the dwarf teddies up front here, and I'm planting a few extra seeds because these ones, I just don't know how the germination rate is going to be, and I really want to make sure that they pop up. In between these peppers here is where I'm going to put the Desire Red hybrid sunflowers. I did a couple of these last year and they were really beautiful, and I just kind of want to see if I can get more out of them. But I am going to be doing another round of carrots in here as well, so I want to leave room in the center for that. I don't know if I actually have any carrot seeds now that I'm thinking about it. That may be the first thing we need to add to our shopping list. These are both smaller. Like I told you, the dwarfs are about 2 feet and the Desire Reds are the same. So the seeds are smaller than your typical sunflower seeds that need to be planted pretty deep. Although the Desire Red said they can go up to 1 inch deep. They're the same size as the dwarf teddy, which says to go 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. So I think it's a little bit more forgiving. Let's see, this is what I'm talking about. I did some clearance marigolds and they're just really unhappy. So I'm just gonna pull these out. And I've been keeping this little compost bin here to throw things in. I need to do some deadheading. If I don't do the deadheading on the nasturtiums especially, they are gonna go to seed and go everywhere. There's lots of new growth coming up on the nasturtiums as they kind of got damaged in the heat waves. I also just need to come through and continue trellising these cucumbers. I'm hoping they start producing soon. I don't know why they haven't yet. These are cucamelons. They're kind of just going wild. Oh, there it is. There's our first cucumber. And I'm just gonna pop this around here and give it the idea that it should wrap. It doesn't always stay. This one seemed like their growth got stunted. I don't know about that. This guy stopped growing too. It's been slow growing with the cucumbers, which is concerning me, and these noodle beans too. I should probably just start getting another round of things here, but I'm waiting to see what the cucumbers do. This is just kind of a daily puttering task. See, this noodle bean's getting pretty big. I'm growing the flax. I'm gonna do some flax seed. I didn't realize how pretty these seed pods were. And then soon we'll be harvesting some eggplant. I usually do my harvest videos on like Instagram, like the shorter videos. But if you wanna see a full harvest video here on YouTube, let me know and I can try to prioritize that this month, because I think it's gonna be a good month, at least toward the end of the month, once these tomatoes start kind of really coming in. There is 1 sun gold. I think I'm gonna reward myself. Ooh, 2. Okay. These are the best. If you only have room to grow 1 tomato and you're worried about getting overwhelmed, I recommend the sun gold tomatoes. They just taste like candy. They're very prolific and easy to grow. And they have the best flavor. All right, greenhouse is still a mess, but we are gonna head in there because I need to start planning for fall and make a shopping list. If you're new here, maybe you haven't seen this, but I do have my seed caddy ready. So I like to restock this at the beginning of every like kind of new season of planting. And this just gives me kind of a grab and go that I can pull from whenever I feel like I have the energy to do a little planting like this. So these were in there before, but I think that's the last time we'll be planting beans and sunflowers for this year, which is kind of sad. And then I do have my binders, and I organized my binders this past spring. I did the summer vegetables in here. I did the spring vegetables in this one, which also applies to fall. They're just the cold loving stuff. And then I have a separate binder for flowers and herbs. And I just, if you haven't seen this, I used like the photo card pockets, and so I can see all my seeds at once, as long as they're normal size seed packets. So we're not gonna be really diving into the flowers and herbs ones. That's really just for summer. But the spring one obviously has our cold loving crops. We need to kind of assess our inventory and what we're gonna be planting for fall. We will have a whole fall planting video, but I think it's going to be a little bit more chaotic this year. I was talking to Meg about how overwhelmed I've been feeling about trying to just figure out what to plant where, and I think we're both just determined not to do a lot of seed starting and to really just go with it and dump stuff everywhere. And thankfully at this point in my kind of gardening experience, I know what I like and what I don't like. So I do have some cabbage in here. I'm not going to be growing cabbage this year. I just find that it's a little bit too finicky for the way that I like to garden. I love to eat it, but if I grow it for a really long time and then I cut it open and it's gone bad somehow or there's bugs in it, that's just a disappointment I don't think I can handle right now. They take up a lot of space and they take a long time, and I'm not in the mood for that. So we will do some kale, and I like to do a few different varieties. So I have ebony lacinato, which is like a dino kale, as well as this prism, which is a compact version of winter boar. So I like to do these in the greenhouse because they're smaller and it has a nice purple hue to it, just to add some variety of color there. This page is a lot more like mustards and kales. So I have a Joy Choy pak choy. I love to do different kinds of pak choys, and this is a really large one compared to like your traditional pak choy. It's like 11 inches long. So I don't know if I want to do that one or not, but it is really slow to bolt, which could be very nice as I kind of get into the third trimester and I'm feeling more slow and I don't want to deal with replanting. So that might be good. It is a very fast maturing variety. It's 45 days. An even faster one, if you grow it as a baby variety, is this Violetta. You can grow this as a baby green or you can grow it as a full-headed pak choy, but it does have violet on it, which is always nice because I like to add, I feel like in the winter especially, the color palette is really limited in the garden. So anytime there's a purple version of something, I will prioritize growing that. I always do a green coin tatsoi. That is a rosette tatsoi, but you can also eat it as a baby leaf in 18 days. But it matures to 14 inches tall and 10 inches wide. So it's a big plant. It takes up a lot of room, but it adds a lot of really beautiful visual interest because there's just not a lot of like rosette shaped things in the garden any time of year. I'm gonna be skipping the gai choy. I'm gonna be skipping the traditional bok choy, but I think I'll do baby choy. Again, these mature really, really fast, between like 30 and 50 days. On this page, I have some other kind of more unique mustards. So I have two different kinds of Mizuna. One is purple and one is just a traditional Mizuna. We're gonna go with the purple one. I also have Dragon Tongue, which is kind of like a Mizuna, but it has like white midribs. I also have my mustard spinach. And honestly, since I know I'm gonna be dumping all of these in and not really planning it too much, and these seeds are already like, most of them are like 2 years old, I don't mind just kind of like using them up at this point because I don't know like how good they're gonna be next year anyway. There's another kale here, shouldn't be on this page. This is the red boar. So that's another magenta kale. And then for arugula, I got Speedy last year. I usually do Astro, which is also right here. And I think the Astro is older. So if you have like 2 packets, you might want to choose the older one. For lettuce, this time of year, I like to just do a mix. So I do have Butter Crunch in here, but I think I'm actually gonna skip it and just do this Chef's Medley, which is my favorite mix that has a whole bunch of mesclun lettuces in it, which are more like your leaf lettuces. This has 25% each of Lala Rosa, oak leaf, 10% of black seeded Simpson, and Butter Crunch, so we'll still get a little Butter Crunch, arugula, Mizuna, and tatsoi. So it has a whole bunch of things in it, not just lettuce. And then I've had trouble with spinach pretty much my entire time gardening. I have always attempted Bloomsdale, and 50% of the time it does not do well for me. Last fall, I planted giant winter spinach for the first time, and I think it's my new favorite spinach variety. I just had a lot better success with germination, and that could have just been timing. But what I really liked about it is it kind of like died back a little bit in January, and then February, March, it popped back up. And I had these huge plants. They were really productive. Like, it lives up to the name for sure. I have watercress in here. I actually haven't experimented with this, and I don't think I'm going to this year. It just feels like too overwhelming for me right now. The same goes for endive. It feels just like fancy, and I don't feel like being fancy right now that I'm thinking about it. I do have mosh. It's also known as vit. This is considered probably the plant that they were talking about in Rapunzel. It's a really tiny leaf. And then I would like to do snap peas in the greenhouse again. I have some Swiss chard out in the main beds that I think I will just transplant into the greenhouse for the fall and winter. So I'm not gonna plant any more chard from seed right now. And then sorrel is planted outside because it's perennial and it does fine in the cold, so I don't even need to replant that. Mine did go to seed already over the last few weeks, and I just kind of spread it around everywhere, so we'll see how much sorrel we get next spring. I do want to do some more onions this year, so we'll do the King Richard leeks again. This will give us some nice height and flavor variety because we have so many just like mustards and lettuces in here, because of course we started with that section of the book, but there still is some variety available to us even outside of that. So we'll do the King Richard leeks as well as my Tokyo long white scallions. I always do these. One category I'm going to skip entirely this year are your kind of conventional brassicas. I'm not going to do any broccolis, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. I find them to be way too finicky. I eat a lot of them, but sometimes that rule of just like plant what you eat doesn't always work out, especially right now at the season of life that I'm in. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do kohlrabi. I do want to do a bunch of different varieties of root crops because in the fall and winter, that's pretty much all we get for variety is leafy greens and root crops. So I will do my radishes again. I always do French breakfast. And this time of year is the only time of year we can do a round black Spanish radish because they need shortening daylight hours in order to germinate properly. So we may stick some of those in. And then for a little bit more variety, we can do the Easter egg blend radish because that'll give us purple and pink on top of our French breakfast radish. And then I have not been able to get this right, but I still have the seeds, so I'm gonna keep trying. I've got some beets here. I don't really like beets, but I keep trying to grow them because I think maybe I'll like them if I grow them. I haven't even gotten to test that theory out because they never seem to bulb up for me. I don't know if I'm not watering them enough, but I have these two varieties that I'm going to be trying again this year, and these are older seed packets too, so I think I'm just gonna dump them all in. And that's everything in the Cool Loving crop binder. We're actually going to be planting these today, but I wanted to give you a preview of what we will be planting because it's coming up pretty soon that we're going to start on these. I don't have a really good nursery here that produces fall crops outside of the brassicas, and I'm not doing them. They take up so much space. Then you get one harvest out of them. It's just not worth it for me. We did clear out the raised beds here in the greenhouse. Since I pulled all the aphid infested plants, there's still ants in here. And I would really like to kind of get that under control and give the chance for the aphid life cycle to complete before I put any new plants in here. So it will still be a few more weeks before I feel confident enough to do that. I've been researching the aphid life cycle. It is wild. So I think if you watched my last video where we pulled all of those things out, I was saying I thought there were like white flies on everything. It wasn't white flies because they weren't moving either. I was like, something about this just isn't lining up with what I assume white flies to look like. Aphids molt 4 or 5 times throughout their life cycle, and so that was their molting that they had just like left behind on the leaves. There's also like this sooty kind of mildew on everything from them and their excretions. They have a really weird reproductive process where like at certain times of the year the female aphids essentially clone themselves and have live births, because I was trying to figure out like, are there dormant eggs in the soil? I know that they don't typically lay eggs in the soil, but is there any way that I should be sanitizing the soil for this? And they don't really leave eggs in the soil like that. They'll lay eggs on the leaves, but at the time of year when I was pulling them, I don't think that is how they were reproducing. There's just a lot of weird stuff. If you're interested in bugs at all, I highly recommend doing some more research into aphids, because it seems like either people don't understand it, or that many different kinds of aphids have many different methods of reproduction and just life cycles in general. So I learned a lot. I didn't really want to learn it, but I learned it. Now I'm just trying to get the ants under control. I made some kind of borax traps with like honey and sugar, and I'm just waiting for that to kind of kick in, although the ant population went down significantly the moment I took the aphids out of here because they have nothing to farm anymore. I just want to make sure that I've gotten this area as bug free as possible before I start bringing new stuff in here. Vacuum, we need to wipe stuff down. It is a really good time for me to show you the watering systems because there's nothing in the way of them right now. So excuse the traps and just the general chaos and mess. But if you want to see a whole video of how I installed this system, I do have it on my channel. These are oyas, and they are essentially just little terracotta tumblers that you bury in the soil, and because they're porous, the water is pulled out of the terracotta through the sides into the soil as the soil dries out. So they're all connected with these lines. There's a DIY way you can do this too, which I also have videos on. And then there's a reservoir. I have a couple different sizes of the reservoirs. I think that's 2.5, and this is a 5 gallon. And you just fill these, depending on your climate, like once a week max, and it will slowly trickle down the line and refill them as needed. So this is probably like the best of the best in terms of automating your watering setup, because not only is it just super hands off, but it reduces wasted water significantly by like 70% because all the water is going underground. You're not losing it to surface evaporation. There's no extra water. The soil just pulls exactly what it needs. It sounds like magic, but it's truly just physics. I mean, physics kind of is magic. It also encourages your plants to develop stronger, deeper root systems because they're reaching downward for that water rather than getting it mostly from the surface. So I highly recommend that as my #1 solution. A #2 solution would probably be to do something like a Bluetooth timer, which I do have somewhere, but they're not set up right now. There's a million different kind of Bluetooth timers. I have only tested a couple of them. If you want me to do something more in depth on those, let me know, but that's definitely more leaning into the technology side of gardening, which it's really cool to kind of mix those things. I don't do it a heck of a lot, but when I do, I find it does make things a lot easier. But it kind of does just kind of transfer the maintenance, because then we're making sure the batteries are charged, making sure the Bluetooth connection is working, that it's syncing with whatever weather app it maybe it's pulling from to decide how much water to give or not give. So those can be really great, but they can also be kind of a pain in just a different way. So you kind of have to choose your battles. The next way that my garden waters itself is out in the arch trellis beds. And I feel like this often gets overlooked because it's completely invisible. But these beds have sub-irrigated planters in them. And I will try to pop up some videos of what this looks like from underneath, because climbing under there right now, it's not gonna work with my belly. From above, I can show you basically all I have to do is open this here, and I can put my hose in here and just let it fill. It has this float, so right now I know it's empty because it's not floating at all. What's cool about these though is I usually don't have to fill them for a lot of the year because they function as rainwater collection systems too. If the water runs down through the soil and there's extra of it, it collects in the reservoirs underneath. Each bed has 4 or 5 gallon reservoirs in it. So oftentimes they're just full of rainwater, and as the plants need it, they draw it up from the roots. Again, that helps with creating stronger, deeper root systems, but it's even more hands-off and automated in a lot of ways without having to deal with any of the downsides of installing technology and dealing with batteries and stuff I was talking about with the timer. So I think that's honestly almost as good as the OU method. I find them to be a little bit annoying if I do have to fill them. It takes a really long time because it's like 20 gallons of water in each bed. It also means that that takes up a lot of the weight limit of the bed. So in this particular setup, there's many different versions of sub-irrigation you can add to different beds, but the ones that come custom to fit those specific beds, they use up a lot of that weight. So that's part of why we need to use the potting soil in those beds, which is a downside. You can also never clean them. I get people who are like, well, don't the mosquitoes get into them? They can't get into them because they're completely buried in the soil. And that's a pro and a con because they're completely buried in the soil. If anything ever broke on them, I'd have to completely remove all of the soil in the bed to address it. Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet in 3-4 years, but it's definitely a possibility that it could. This is my messy corner right now. I need to kind of come out here and spend a day clearing this up, but this is my other automation system that makes watering a lot easier. So I've got my rain barrel here, of course, collecting rainwater. And then I also have my retractable hose reel, which I will link for you guys down in the description, because there's just absolutely no way I could be hand watering, period, at all if I didn't have this. I hate coiling hoses. It's the most strenuous thing. It truly just drives me absolutely nuts. If I didn't have this, I probably wouldn't hand water at all. I only really need to use it in the in-between seasons when like the sub-irrigated planters are just good for established plants. When you're starting seeds, it's not going to keep the soil on the top damp if you're direct sowing them in the beds. So I still need to surface water when I've got seeds in there if it's not actively raining on a regular basis. The mulch helps with that too, but especially in the spring I tend to use that a lot, and I use it a lot in the greenhouse too. So since we've pulled all the seeds, now I kind of have a sense of what I want to grab. Most of it's just replacing stuff that I noticed is getting low. So the lettuce blend, I kind of want to get a different leaf lettuce blend that has more just like leaf lettuces in it versus the arugula and tatsoi that's in that mix that I have. I need to get new carrot seeds. I used up all my carrot seeds this spring. I've experimented a lot with different carrot varieties, and I've gotten the same feedback from other people too, that like you just need to find one variety that does really, really well for you. I think we're gonna stick with Danvers and Nantes carrots now because they're just classic. I can trust them, they're reliable. And reliable is what I need. That is my main priority right now in choosing plants, is stuff that I know is just gonna do well without a ton of pest pressure, without a ton of babying. Maybe it even thrives on neglect. So we're gonna order some more of those carrot seeds. I have one new seed that I wanna try out, Aspabroc. So this is a sprouting broccoli. It's basically like broccolini. I think that will just be a better use of space if I decide to do a brassica outside. I'm not gonna set them up inside. It's just gonna be an experiment because I like to have at least one experimental thing. I'm gonna direct sow it, and if it does well, it does well. If it does not, it does not, and that is fine. And then I have to order my garlic, my seed garlic. So I do have some that is inside that I pulled that I'll probably replant, but I need 60 cloves. So in each head usually only has between like 4 and 9 cloves on it. So I'll probably grab some music garlic, and I kind of want to grab some elephant garlic too. I haven't done elephant garlic before, and every year I regret that I don't do it, so I want to give it a try. And that's pretty much it for my shopping list for fall. I do have a full garden to-do list that I put out every single month right now on my Substack. So if you're not already subscribed over there, that will be down in the description as well if you want to join our community over there. There's free posts, and then there's also a paid tier that you can join that is a really great way to support the channel, especially right now as we're going through kind of me figuring out maternity leave and everything. I don't really know like what that's gonna look like. It's gonna change my posting schedule a bit. I'm gonna try to pre-record some videos for YouTube, but I think it'll be a lot easier for me to put out written content for a while. So if you're worried about missing me, I will definitely be over there. I'm already over there. And the to-do lists are really long. I love writing, so I get to put a lot of great detail into them that maybe doesn't even come across here. So I think I'm gonna just kind of get some cleaning done here in the greenhouse. Diego sent these to me to go with the beds. They're actually custom built for it, and they're 4-in-1. So they work as a trellis, a cover system. They work to hold tools. I'm gonna actually use them to mount some grow lights this year, I think. And then also cover them once it gets colder. And I'll link to the raised beds as well. I really like them. They're a little bit of a pain to assemble, but not because they're poorly designed. It's just kind of a complicated thing to build. I think they just slot into the corners. Covers. There's individual kind of videos all over my channel diving more into rainwater collection, the OYA system and everything. So if you're curious about that, there's more information on it there. If you want to grab a Throw Seeds Not Hands shirt, that is also down below the description. I hope that this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.